So, to prep for the Making Fossils lesson, I have the little video that reviews the different types of fossils, the trace fossils, imprint and mold fossils, the resin fossils, and then the mineralization or fossilization fossils. And the students will end up making 3 of the 4 different types of fossils. And we'll explain, of course, that mineralization, it takes millions of years, and we gotta move on to the next grade level in May. So I come into the classroom, and in one class period we'll end up making 2 different types of fossils. We'll make imprint fossils and we'll make resin fossils. Now, the way I have this prepped, so there are materials, because I'm going to be doing part of it and then I need other teachers to be doing another part of it. I've got my cart kind of separated by the different materials that are needed in the different stations. For the area where in our case, the classroom teachers will be helping with the resin fossils, I've got the supplies that those teachers will need. I've got, hopefully they'll end up working. I've got new hot glue gun mats so that because these are the big Mama Jamma hot glue guns, not to be used by kids, but the full size heavy heat ones, so that when these leak, they can just leak onto the silicone mat and not ruin anybody's table. I've got an extension cord because I do find that often the plugs are not in useful places, and at least this gets us 6 feet away from the wall. And for our resin fossils, I've got the very cool, I think it was originally sold as auto body parts hot glue. For some reason they have yellow hot glue, and it is the high heat melt kinds, but I found yellow hot glue, so it's perfect for pretending to make amber fossils. So those are all ready for the adults that are going to be helping me in the room. As far as the materials the students will need, I've got the little portion cups. Here at Trinity, they give students syrup in these for Topsy-Turvy Day, or sometimes there's cheese and pepperonis in these, but these little portion cups, not that I usually use ones, I have these. The little portion cups. I've got some Sharpies ready to go. I've got some spray nonstick. I chose canola oil because I don't think anyone has any allergies to canola oil. And then I've got little Tupperware things of the bugs that will become part of the fossils. At the station where this is going on, students will be told to write their name on the outside of the cup, then give a 1 spurt of the canola oil, and then they get to choose what type of insects they would like in their resin fossil. I've got 2 different sizes, so I was thinking along the lines, if kids want 2 insects, they can have 2 of the small ones. I've got little tiny ants and these really bizarre looking flies. So if kids want 2 ants or 2 flies or 1 of each, they can get 2 of the insects. Or if they want a bigger insect, that's fine, but then they just get 1. So we've got grasshoppers and like little butterflies and yellow jackets and dragonflies and beetles. I've got these bigger ones that of course came in a pack of like 144. So those will be the choices. After the student spurts their nonstick spray into the cup, then they can put the 1 or 2 insects in there, and then they'll get the teachers to add the yellow hot glue. And then it'll just move along. This one's pretty efficient, at least easy for the kids. Once they pick their insect, it's a little bit harder on the teachers just because the hot glue guns are so intense to use. A lot of squeezing. At their tables, the students and I will be working on the imprint fossils. Now, for these, I have ready to go little boxes that have a table or 2's worth of supplies, and I have those on my second one so I can remember, okay, these are going in the teacher station, things on the second level are going to the tables. And at the tables, what the students will get is a set of frozen yogurt cups and a Sharpie. Frozen yogurt cup is where their fossil is going to go. They need to Sharpie their name on the outside. And then each table will get a box of shells. This year, I decided rather than doing imprint fossils of the plastic insects, let's do imprint fossils of shells, because that's what they've seen. I've shown them imprint fossils that I've collected with the shells, and then that way they don't have too many insect fossils. So they've got a shell imprint, they'll end up with a shell imprint an insect and resin, and the trace fossils that they'll do with Ms. Kane in Science Lab. And the students' instructions, after they put their name on the frozen yogurt cup, it also have these little, again, portion containers. And in here, I've dolloped some Vaseline. Now, I've had to do the very disgusting job of doling out Vaseline. Vaseline's about as gross as mayonnaise. And I just ended up, because I didn't have any plastic knives, I just ended up sticking a popsicle stick in there to use to scoop out clumps of the Vaseline, the petroleum jelly. Now what the students will be told to do is they need to pick either one big shell, because they do have some really big ones that take up almost an entire bowl, so that's really enough for one fossil. But I also have some smaller ones, so they can also choose 2 smaller ones, much like with the insects. And I'll ask them to put Vaseline on the side that they want showing up in their imprint, almost like you would put sunscreen on the back of the shell if you were worried about the shell getting sunburn, or maybe the students would put Vaseline all over this one, because I don't know which side you'd pick. That actually might be a good idea for me to tell the kids to put Vaseline over all of them. As I'm making the plaster of Paris, I will dump the plaster of Paris in their cups and then ask them just to drop the shell or shells on top of the mud, just like would happen with fossilization. And it's really important that the students be reminded before, during, not to press the shells in. They'll be very tempted to, but if they get pressed down, then they end up sticking far too much into the plaster, and they're a pain in the neck to take out. Because of course, for imprint fossils, we got to take the thing that left the imprint out, because in imprint fossils or mold fossils that we have, the organism is no longer there. It's just the imprint of what was left behind. So little elf work day after the plaster gets dried with me picking the shells out. And then I always like to have extra supplies, just because life, and certainly STEAM and science, never go as organized as you plan. As much as you may count out the number of shells and have the right things, I'm probably going to need an extra froyo cup or 2, got some extra Sharpies. I even have backup bugs. I'm not going to take any extra shells, just because I'm a little concerned that they'll start cracking as I'm pulling them up, and so I'd like to try and make it all the way through with the shells that I have. And I have not distributed for this one class all the shells I do have. I've got prepped for the next class that I'll have another set of shells where I've got 5 of these little containers. So for each of the 5 table groups, they've got different shells. So that'll give me a little lead time, so that if I need to leave those in a little bit longer, or they need to be washed off, I've got shells ready to go for the next class, and then these can be for the 3rd class, and then these will be for the 4th, so on and so forth. And of course I've got a couple backup, but I didn't buy a ton of shells because I'm not really certain how well this is going to work, and I can always make a quick adjustment and go back to the plastic bugs if I need to this year. So just kind of try to have everything ready to go and sorted for my own understanding and organization, just so that I've got things in the right places and we can be as efficient as possible with our time.